And all right, we are recording. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today Andrew SVISCO of Parkhurst Boots, and I have the profound honor of getting to talk to him one-on-one directly and ask him a few questions. So Andrew, welcome to my channel.
Thanks for having me, Dale. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's good to talk to you one-on-one finally. You know, I know we've been talking back and forth on Instagram, basically ever since you got your brand started. And
yeah, a little years ago now. So thanks for sticking for the ride.
Absolutely. I think you're doing one of the best things out there right now, which is just starting your own brand, creating your own look, your own image. And I think you've been doing great. And like, honestly, like any YouTube videos that I've done on your boots, I just get resounding applause. The most frequent comment I get is they're 10 out of 10. Yeah. So
that was a wild boot last fall that I wanted to run, but thanks for your support and your enthusiasm. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was it's funny you held that boot up there. That was crazy working with that boot. Like that leather was just like it can be so gnarly sometimes, like when we're looking over the hide in that, because we used the reverse side for it, and there was just more consistency, believe it or not, in the reverse side than there was the grain. But like the grain side had a nicer, like smoother finish to it. But the problem is like mohawk leather, not really a problem, but just more of a characteristic of mohawk leather from what I've seen. There are definitely a lot more natural, like physical scarrings and imperfections in that leather, which sometimes make it hard to blend with each part of the pattern, if that makes sense. Or harder rather than something like kudu, where even though there are more scars in the leather, they're not as like plentiful in the sense that they're like physical gashes or indents, but they're more of like a bunch of like smaller surface area scars rather than these giant like indents and veinings and in some cases even cracks, which obviously we cut around. So
right, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I've been meaning to do a video on these, specifically a video on all my brown fuzzy boots, for example.
Love it.
Yeah, like the raised reverse wax mohawk reminds me so much of Harwin's reverse tobacco chamois leather right here. They're both real oily. They're both the same. Like
it's very close. It's very, very close. Yeah. That's definitely one of my favorites from Harwin is that oiled chamois leather. It's great. I mean, I have tons of favorite leathers from Harwin. So this is
too many to list off, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's for how to see the swatch book that I have from them. It's just like, oh my god, there must be like, I don't know, like 150, 250 swatches or so in there. It's insane. Sometimes, I'd stop and think to myself, like, geez, like, do I have the time to like actually look through all this and like make an educated decision and research like what leathers work the best or maybe what leathers were preferred over others or something, because like everything from Harwin is going to be good, so you're going to get a quality product. And same goes for CF Stead and Seidel and all the other tanners out there. So yeah, it's just crazy. Like getting some of these swatch books in is just like it's exciting, right? Because like you get to see like, oh hey, like we can use this and make this, but like at the same time it's kind of daunting because it's like there's so many like here, perfect example, I'll show you. So like I'll get in just like stacks of these, right? And they're booklets and single individual orders of paper, just like with the swatches on them and whatnot. And each one of these, like for instance, you can see this one here, it's like some of them open up to like a bifold like this, and others, some of them are trifolds too, but it's just like we'll get like one of these in, and then sometimes they'll come in these bigger plastic cases like this, and you can see like the thickness of this and like what they're coming in. So that's from CF Stead, and it's just like you can kind of see what I mean, where it's just like it's so much to go through, and like the possibilities seem endless. So it's great, but at the same time, it's like, you want to make sure you're sampling the right hides. And then of course it takes time to get the sample side into the factory and then, make a mock-up of it and then test it for a couple of months or maybe even 6 months or in some cases even a year, like before Kudu came out. Like before I came out with Kudu, that one, the spruce one in particular, that one, I mean, I spent probably like a year or so just like beating the crap out of that leather just to make sure it can handle whatever was, thrown at it in terms of like an everyday wear and possibly more. It's funny because with Kudu, I'm so thankful to have customers around the world that are interested, and they're buying my Kudu boots, and they email me these little recaps of like journeys or hikes or vacations they take in different areas that are like these crazy climates, like like one like in the Saharan desert, or whether it be like the outback of Australia. And honestly, like some of my customers, they're on military bases in in the Middle East, and it's crazy to hear that, like, wow, like these boots are in that type of environment, and these are the Kudu boots. And it's interesting to hear it too, because like Kudu is like, it's such a soft and supple leather, but yet it's still strong. And I think maybe there's sort of a misconception out there about it being like so soft and supple that maybe it's not strong. But like, I don't know, like just from me and a couple of people I've worked with a year before launching it, testing it out, like it's been performing very well. And then naturally the feedback in these small stories that I get from my customers, which I'm truly thankful for, kind of helps speak a little bit more to what the capabilities of that leather really are.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing that caught me off guard was I got my first pair of moose hide, which I think moose and kudu are super similar in terms of how they feel. And yeah, they're both real lightweight. They're almost dry and almost airy. And
yeah.
And kudu in particular stretches a lot, but man, you're right. Like it is an incredibly tough, hard wearing leather, and you wouldn't expect it because it looks delicate, and when you feel it, it feels delicate. But I guess the thing to remember is like these are wild animals.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's crazy because like the moose that I source is from CF and it's a thicker leather. Like we're talking right around 5.5, like 6 ounce leather in some cases. And there are obviously going to be different parts of the hide that weigh in a little bit thicker than others. So like that measurement is more of an average that we get from the tannery of what we can expect throughout that entire hide, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, the crazy thing about moose is like, it is a thicker leather. So, but with that though, there's still substance to it, like there's still like a certain type of weight to it that's very reassuring when you're wearing them. And it naturally, like kudu, it's a different animal, so like naturally it's a lighter weight leather, and we're talking terms like 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce. So like it's not like a humongous difference, but like the difference is still naturally going to be there. Moose is, I mean, the samples and the custom orders that I've done for clients so far, like it just continues to surprise me.
I have no doubt about that. Yeah, moose is just one hell of a leather, man. I think maybe it's so different because the traditional, well, what most people are used to in terms of a hide is actually like comes from a domesticated animal, a cow that, from the beef industry. So these cows aren't really, they're not fighting to survive. They're fed every day. They get to graze. They live comfortable lives. Whereas the antelopes, the kudus, the moose, those things aren't living comfortably. They're out there roughing it, in the wild. So
yeah, the environment definitely plays a role in determining how the leather itself is going to turn out. Naturally, more free range type of animals, or more like bush type of animals, you're going to find like a lot of those types of animals that graze near trees, thorn bushes, items of that nature. So you're going to find there's going to be some scars on them. But like also the thing with antelope is, I mean, they're an animal that's hunted by larger prey. So like you're going to find claw marks sometimes in the leather, and it just depends. And like a lot of these free range types of leathers that are used, like it's crazy the different types of preferences out there too, because I'll get customers who email me, about a custom order they like literally just placed, and they'll be like, give me the most marked up piece of the hide for this pair, or give me like, I want as many scratches as possible, or like I want as many like gashes or claw marks, as possible. And then like we have the other end of the spectrum where there's a different preference, where it's like maybe people want the leather, but they want a more clean cut part of the hide. And then obviously, naturally, like if we can't match them up, as close to perfectly as possible at the factory, then like something like that will mark as like a second or something. But also on that, like we're only limited to the cuttable area, like square footage of the hide. So like when we get, for example, like when we get kudu hides in, we're talking maybe like 11 to 13 square feet, like for each side, which isn't really a lot as compared to like maybe a bovine hide where we're looking at 20 to 25 square feet. But the challenge then becomes when we're working with something like a kudu or a moose, and moose have larger hides, so it's maybe not as applicable in this instance. But with kudu in particular, the cuttable area is substantially decreased due to the environment from which it came. So, it's like we're working with lesser square footage of leather, plus that lesser square footage of leather has scars to it. So it's like, how do we maximize our cutting capabilities while keeping, end pricing in mind, while keeping in mind how matched up the left boot's going to be to the right boot, and like just, how the overall boot is going to look in general, right? I mean, just touching the tip of the iceberg here when it comes to doing this stuff, but naturally, like those are the main things that I'm looking out for, and so the factory is looking out for as well when cutting these types of leather. So it can definitely be challenging, but and no boot is perfect. That no boot's going to be absolutely perfect. So, but at the end of the day, if it can come as close as you can to maybe floating along the lines or hovering along the lines of being perfect or acceptable, then at the end of the day, then we did our job. So.
Absolutely. That's so true. And it's so interesting hearing you talk about because you get the full hide and then from there you have to strategize is essentially what you have to do. You have to like look at the pieces that are scarred, look at the thicker pieces. I know that some makers, they go into they skive layers off to make it more uniform, to make the thickness more uniform. Cause like one area might be 10 ounces, one area might be more 8 ounces. It's unpredictable. So
concept, and really I like all that credit I got to give to the factory here in Western New York that I work with, because like they're just really good at doing that sort of thing. I mean, it's crazy because like when I look at the hides in the factory, like what's came in and essentially what we're dealing with, like it's their expertise is really selecting the parts of the hide to cut, that we have to work with. There will be instances where we might get in like an entire side of kudu, 11 to 13 square feet, and we only might get like maybe a half a pair out of it, or one pair or so. And the factory can speak more to that than I can, because I've only been around for a little bit while during this particular step of the process when they're cutting it and stuff. So like I can see like some of the not hiccups, but like I can see like what we run into like with regards to using different parts of the hide when cutting. But like honestly, like that's where the factory really shines, is their ability to cut out these parts of the leather that will match up the best from boot to boot. And like I said before, naturally, just due to the type of leather that we're working with, not every boot is going to come out like perfectly matched up, or even for that matter. So
that makes sense. And speaking of your factory, it's great hearing like how everything works at the factory and their expertise. But I'm curious about like your personal ability with boot making. Are you able to like, say for example, like take a day and go to the factory and build your own pair of boots if you wanted to, like start to finish?
So like I've done that actually in the workshop I share outside of the factory. So like it's not something that I could per se, like in theory, like, do I have the confidence to do it? Like, do I have the know-how and ability? Yeah, I mean, I do, but like, would it be realistic to just go and do that? Probably not, because like they're just so like they have their like they have their own things and their own operations as well going on at the factory. So it's like, I want to be respectful and not, butt in like doing something like that. So, but it is an interesting question though, because like this whole thing like first started, I got my knowledge for boot making from my cobbler. I mean, kind of like a, no surprise there, right? But he's been literally making shoes, orthotics, different custom shoes, and repairing them for the past 45 years. So like I thought to and he's 10 minutes away from where I live, 30 minutes, both him and I are 30 minutes away from the factory itself. So I got a lot of my starting knowledge from my cobbler, and I also share a workspace with him in the workshop. So that's where I can actually like take stuff that like materials that I keep at the factory, or I mean, honestly, I keep materials at my house even sometimes, or my apartment. I can bring stuff from both of those places to the workshop, and I can just like make a boot. Yeah, I'll have to get some pictures up sometime soon about like what these actual boots turned out looking like when I was doing them by hand. But there's not a lot of them. There's only a few, but they're very time consuming to make naturally. I mean, I know every step along the way, like, but when I first was looking into starting Parkhurst and kind of like giving it a go on my own, like I was going back and forth between like literally my basement and my cobbler's workshop at the time, and just figuring out how to make boots on my own and figuring out how to like inseam stitch by hand, like sole stitch by hand, obviously like run uppers through sewing machines and that. And like it was very challenging at first to learn, but these, again, like this is just what I was doing when I was first starting out. So it's like something like, inseam stitching by hand in my basement, like that's not going to work at the factory, like, because it just, I mean, frankly, it just takes so much time to do, and we're not going to be able to I wouldn't be able to make as many like products for my customers that they want, in a decent amount of time. So obviously, like there definitely came a point where it's like, okay, yeah, like we're doing this stuff, or like I'm doing this stuff by hand, like in my basement, like how do I kind of get to the next level? And there's interest in it that seems to be growing, so it's like, how do I accommodate that interest? So, one thing kind of led me to another, and, I ended up just kind of like pitching this idea to at the time it was PW Minor, which, I mean, most people already know by now. So,
Right.
but trying to get this idea that was literally just bouncing back and forth between my basement and my cobbler's workshop, to, I guess, just more of a larger scale. But like, I don't know, like using the term larger scale, like I don't mean like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pairs of boots being made all at once. Like, we're talking, I don't remember what the output was at the time, but it was like smaller because I was just starting. But we're talking in smaller batches, a few hundred, a few thousand, like here and there. So it was kind of challenging getting from that part to obviously the part that I'm at now. But there are things that obviously like the skilled workers at the factory know how to do that I don't. And frankly, it's and that's their area of expertise. Like I that's what I rely on them for, and they come through doing a stellar job. And I tell everybody this, like I wouldn't rather be working with anybody else, because like they take the time to teach me things and point things out to me that I wouldn't have seen, like when trying to scale from a basement to a more formal, online, delivering a product to a consumer. So yeah, I mean, I gotta give, all my credit to just them helping me make the product. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today without their help and without their expertise and without their craftsmanship. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Great things come from a collaborative effort, multiple people coming together, working.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, it's impossible to do it all on your own. As cool as that would be to like be able to like make all the boots yourself, like Lars at what's his name?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. As cool, as fun as that would be.
His skill is just like on another level. Like he is so good at what he does. And like, even like all these other individual boot makers out west, and in some of the like Indonesia and Japan, like these people are just so skilled at what they do. And
It's so true. And man, so I just to get ready for this interview, I actually rewatched your interview with Dave at the Vintage Future, and
yeah,
you said something, you touched on something that really interested me because I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, and you grew up in New York, so we're both from like the northeastern United States. And so you said
yeah,
that yeah, the Parkhurst brand name, it
yep.
comes from the street your grandpa lived on, right?
Parkhurst Boulevard is what it was is what it's called. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he was also a steel worker. Yeah, I was going to say my grandpa also grew up. So Youngstown is part of the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
Youngstown, Pittsburgh, the steel industry was huge there. My grandpa was also a steel worker his whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's very cool to hear that you come from very similar. Your family has a very similar background to mine, you know, coming up in the Rust Belt, the steel industry, which obviously dried up and then everything got exported to outsourced overseas. But it's
Yeah.
to me, I really resonate with that heritage that you have, you know, being from the northeastern United States, because
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just more of like where I drew my inspiration from. You know, it was like I know I don't mean to repeat myself or sound too repetitive or anything, but yeah, I mean, he's still alive. I keep speaking in past tense. I shouldn't do that because he's still alive today. But yeah, he was a lot of my inspiration because like that was during the time where you know, we would have these talks with one another, and that was when he considered it to be like, you know, the good old days, right? Like everybody has their definition of the good old days, and that was his definition of the good old days, where like he had a consistent, well, I mean, you know, before the outsourcing occurred, it was consistent, but he had an American manufacturing job where he was able to go to work, put in an honest day's work, and put food on the table for him and his family. So like, I kind of wanted the name of the company to kind of be like reminiscent of his memory of that, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it is the name of the street it's actually in a town called Tonawanda, and the street name's Parkhurst Boulevard. So that's pretty much, you know, where I got my inspiration to name the actual company. And then my friends, fans, and customers who either live in Buffalo or are from Buffalo or know the Western New York area, they'll be the first to tell you that, you know, the styles that I name my boots after are actually after street names or regions like in Buffalo or like in Erie County or like the Western New York area. So that was kind of my, you know, thought process there, trying to just, you know, tie everything together and just keep everything like, you know, consistent, because there's a certain memory attached to each item, right? Like the name of the company, the name of the styles, and all that. So
right. So I noticed, yeah, you have. I do notice that all your nomenclature for your different boot models are reminiscent of that, like the Allen, the Delaware, the
yeah,
Richmond, the Spalding, which is new, as well as now you have the Bidwell derbies. I saw that you just released. Those are really some really attractive derbies, by the way. Yeah,
got the first sample prototypes right here. I don't know how well it can be seen on a.
those look incredible, man. Is that brown chrome XL or?
It's actually brown Havana, but it's still a chrome tanned leather from Harwin. Very similar properties to Chrome XL, but the tannery name, like even on the order sheet, is called brown Havana. So, but it's got chrome tanned properties to it. It's a very just durable all around leather, and frankly, that's probably maybe the best leather to use for like kind of an all around everyday type of shoe, derby type, you know, piece of footwear. And that's kind of why I chose to use it for just like this, you know, just like one shoe to kind of start off the shoe collection with, and just wanted to pick something that was just, you know, more versatile and easier to wear, low maintenance type thing. So
Right. I can say that the derbies now, like I used to be, you know, a sandals guy and whatever sneakers I used to wear. Now my
yeah,
go-to shoe in the summer is the derby. Like I wear derbies with shorts. I wear
yeah,
derbies with chinos, you know, no-show socks, chinos. The derby is probably it's just my favorite shoe. not my favorite boot, but my favorite shoe for sure. Because you can do everything with it. I mean, everything a sandal can do basically, except for like your swimsuit, I would say.
That, but
yeah.
I mean, funny that you mentioned that though, just like how like footwear styles and tastes and preferences have changed. Like, I mean, I grew up during like the early 2000s, late 90s, where a lot of that like fashion sense was like sort of transforming into something a little bit different. But like the big thing in like high school, middle school, like people, at least from like what I saw, I can't speak for everybody, but from what I saw, a lot of people were wearing those, I don't know if you remember, but the Abercrombie and Fitch leather flip-flops.
Yes.
Or their cargo shorts. And like, that was like a lot of the style back then. So it wasn't exactly my style, but like, it was definitely plentiful. Like there was a lot of it out there. So it's just funny to see like how styles have changed over time. And I mean,
right.
it's something that I don't think I had the confidence to pull off, quite frankly.
Full disclosure, I used to wear the Abercrombie cargo pants and their leather flip-flops, and I also have frosted tips. So how about you? Did you ever rock the frosted tips?
I didn't. No.
No.
I didn't. I wanted to, like, at some point, but then like, I don't know, like my hair is kind of funky. Like it's between like a curly and a straight. Cause like, I mean, my, obviously like we get our genetics from our parents and stuff. So like, one had curly wavy hair, the other one had poker straight hair. So like, I didn't really, I mean, could it have been done? Yeah, sure. But it was, I don't know, really dye it. I never really like, I had to wrap my head around the idea of like dyeing my hair or doing something to it. I always thought it looked cool. I just don't know if it would have been a good look for me. Who knows? Maybe I'll try it this year or something.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Bring it back. Well, I can tell you, you have great hair, sir, so don't change it. So actually, I'm actually interested in your personal boot origin story, because everybody has one. And this is a question that I like to ask people, because for me, my first boot that I just loved was the Indy boot, mostly because I'm an Indiana Jones fan and grew up.
Honestly, that was like, for boots, like that was one of my very first ones, because I was a huge I am still a huge Indiana Jones fan. But yeah, like that one boot in particular for me, like that definitely stood out. And then like that kind of led me to, like, oh, well, who actually makes this boot? And like, it wasn't like, just going one step further. It was going like a half dozen steps further. Like not only like who makes this boot, like, but what are the origins of the company that makes this boot? How long have they been around? What materials are they using to make this boot type thing? So I kind of nerded out a little bit on it.
Yes.
So
I think many of us did. That's interesting to hear. So your first like love of boots was the Indy boot then?
So it's kind of, honestly, my answer, I'll answer your question. It's got like two parts to it though. Like that's the first part, is the Indiana Jones. That's where I saw, like, visually, that's where I was like, oh wow, this is really, really cool. And the second part to that answer would be the boot that started it for me all was a Wolverine 1000 Mile color 8 Chromexel. And that it was, or actually I think it was brown Chromexel. I ended up buying like every colorway that they had. So it was either the brown or the color 8, but there was something about like stepping into that boot and like feeling the comfort in the heel pad and feeling how thick the upper leathers were, and the insole was nice and it was breathable. I was like, whoa, like this is really cool. And then I put them on with, my jeans and pants and started, going out and wearing them and stuff. And I was like, I couldn't help but like cross my legs all the time, because like I liked looking at the boot up close while I was wearing them. So it was
right.
Same concept with like the Indy boots when I got my hands on my first pair. But I mean, it really, like the actual experience of like handling and like physically wearing the product was the Wolverine 1000 Mile, and then it just kind of translated into Alden, then Red Wing, then next thing. I mean, well, you know how this goes.
Yes.
I mean, one thing leads to another. Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the process, sir. As you can see, you might look down there too. You see it. So okay, cool. So you've kind of taken an evolution through some of the different brands. So just out of curiosity, another like personal question, like what boots do you wear day to day? Do you wear your own stuff, or do you still like wear some of your old stuff, or keep a mix of a rotation going?
Yeah.
What's your rotation look like?
It's funny. Like I get this question all the time.
Yeah.
And honestly, it really is a combination of everything. I do wear my boots. I wear mainly the samples and the prototypes that might have been done, whether it be like a new build or a new sample or a new pattern design or something like that. So like I'll wear those around and about. But at the same time, like I'll still throw on like my Aldens, like I'll still throw on a pair of Viberg, like I'll still wear like an old pair of Red Wings or something. Like I still like there's still a part of me at heart that like I'm trying to figure out the way to say this, but like I'm not just consumed by like what I'm making. Like there's still the boot collector, shoe collector part of me that still enjoys wearing like the other items out there. And like I like wearing my own stuff just as much too. But recently, within the past like maybe 6 to 8 months or so, it's just something where like I find myself just so on the go that between shipping things and going from the workshop to my office and then to the factory, like I'm just around a lot. So like sometimes like I don't always think to like put on a lace up boot. So like I'll literally just slip on my New Balance sneakers and just kind of hop from one place to another. Cause like when I have, a busy schedule or like a day's worth of stops to make, which is pretty much every other day for me, it fluctuates a lot between just, throwing on a pair of New Balances or Nikes and, lacing up my boots. I mean, if I know I'm going to be out around a lot, like I'll put on something more supportive, like a boot or something like that, like whether it be mine or Alden or Red Wing or Viberg. It kind of depends on like what all I'm doing for the day. So
okay,
yeah.
That makes sense, right? That's always something that I'm curious about, because like I'm thinking like, what if I started making my own boots? Like, would I just convert fully to my own brand, or like, it's always fascinating to hear from the mind of the maker, like how they perceive their own collection. Still, it's cool to hear.
I'm like, don't get me wrong, like I've spent a lot of time and I continue to spend a lot of time in my boots, but like it just comes down to like I don't want to give the sense that like I'm overly consumed by like my own boots and that like, oh, I'll wear nothing else, because that's not the truth and that's not the case. Like I do enjoy like different varieties of footwear that I own from every different brand. And
I have to say, like, I am loving your new last shape. So these are the Color 8 double-ins from you. I also have here the raised reverse waxed mohawk.
Yeah.
I can't help but notice, yes, you did update the last just a little bit. It's not much, and I covered it in one of my videos, but it's probably not coming through on my camera. I think the newer one's just a little bit more rounded out in the toe, just by a little bit.
Rounder.
The old one seems to be straighter, almost like the Alden Berry Last. It doesn't take as many sharp curves, whereas this new one's much more like
a little bit more round, right?
Yeah, a little bit rounded, a little bit sharper, a little bit more curvature happening.
Can I actually let you in on a little secret?
Yes.
There has not been a last change.
Oh.
I get this question a lot too. Like, I didn't change lasts. Like, I didn't make any revisions. Like, I didn't make.
Yeah.
The reason why it's different, the reason why the shape is different, the reason why the fit is different is because without giving away too much proprietary, knowledge here, but reason why it's different is because the build is different. So when I goals to instead of using like a regular like veg tan leather to using the Ben's veg tan leather that's thicker, there's more surface area for the uppers to be wrapped around when being pulled over the last, because you're talking like a thicker Ben's insole versus a thinner one that's backed with like something like in the old days like a Texan or some type of cushioning thing that's commonly found in just pretty much almost every boot nowadays. But the reason why it's different is because the uppers are being pulled over, not only the last, but they're being pulled over that extra 3 to 4 millimeters of Ben's veg tan leather. So it's going to create a little bit more of a rounder look, but also I redid the patterns of the bottom of the last, which also created a little bit more room in the toe box. So without getting too much into the minutia and the nitty gritty details here, it's actually due to the build and is actually due to a slight redesign of the bottom pattern of the last, which the insole dies were created from. And then, pairing those few things together kind of made for a little bit more round look, and allowed for about an extra 2 square millimeters of space in the toe box of the boot itself. So yeah,
Okay.
because it does look like, I got the same boot here, right here. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it and it definitely does look rounder, right? Like it looks a little bit more like thicker, I guess, maybe in a sense, but literally just a result of it, of just the newer build that I'm using. Plus, when you're using thicker upper leathers like that, it's going to create a little bit more of I guess like a thicker type of look. So I can definitely understand how one would think that this was a change to the last, or this is a revision to the last. But the truth of the matter is, I didn't make any changes to the last. the changes were made to the build itself. But it was kind of surprising for me. Like, maybe not surprising, but like I kind of saw when we were sampling at the factory, how things were going to turn out. But like, I look at the new build versus the old build, and I look at like how just different it looks, and maybe I'm overly detail oriented here or something like that, but there are definitely differences in like the thickness of the toe shape, and the toe box being maybe just a little bit more round and a little bit less of an almond taper, even though there might be still a little bit of that almond taper there. So but yeah, I hope I didn't mislead you on that.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. And in fact, no, that's good, because I think your last is very unique compared to what else is out there. I think you stand alone. You're in like a category in and of yourself right there with this last, because it's dressy, but it's roomy. And that's what's so crazy about it, is when I look at it, I'm so deceived because it looks small and it looks like I should have to go true to size. My true to size is a size 9, but no, 8.5 is a perfect fit in these. And they're so supportive too. They're just, this pair in particular, oh my God, they're like a dream on my foot.
Just focused on, using more like thicker, more like heavy duty components, but it's kind of a trade-off, because like when you move to using those components, like the break-in is a little bit different, and it's generally speaking sometimes a little bit more rough. Whereas the old build, it's like, we're using leather in the insole, and we're backing the leather with a proprietary like backer that's used for other boots in the market that help make it more comfortable, in the sense that like there's a little bit of like a bounce per se. So it's not like as like stiff it's not as stiff of a break-in as something like a Ben's leather veg tan insole. And then of course, like the build always had like the natural cork in the shank and all that in that, and so does the new build. But yeah, it's crazy how different the feel is and how different the fit is for some people, and like that also opens up like a whole other story, right? Like fitting and sizing. So like it's crazy, because like anybody who's communicated with me over email, like or instant message or DM or whatever, I tell them the same few things, and it's like, well, first off is that it actually wasn't a last design change. It was just a build change, which kind of leads to a different aesthetic. So I could definitely understand why people, or why someone might think like, this is a last change. But the other thing, I talked to them about is sizing, right? So like everybody has sizing questions, and like the general, it's different for everybody. And that's why I say the general sizing recommendation for this last, based off of the majority, overwhelming volume of customers who have given me their feedback, like via email or message me, has been a half size down from Brannock. But those who have like a wider forefoot, or are erring on the side of like a D to pretty much a single E width as measured on Brannock, they have gone with their Brannock size. So like there are exceptions out there. Some people have say they have like a width and a super low instep, low volume foot. In some cases, or even narrow, they've even gone a full size down from Brannock, especially if they plan on wearing like thin socks or dress socks. So there's just like this there's just plethora of combinations, that can happen with sizing. And that's why I encourage everybody, and I hope I'm not too redundant, about saying this on my website or when communicating to people, but that's why I encourage everybody to, if they're unsure, maybe in between sizes, to just email me directly, and I'm more than happy to help them. I mean, I've even had phone calls with clients before, just, determining what size they would be in my boots, because it does matter. Like, if someone with a wider foot, like, is going to want to err on the size of going with their Brannock size. But it's like, when we get into like the 2E, 3E, and sometimes even 4E instances, like, the last unfortunately does not accommodate that right now. For the new last, and I get this question a lot, so hopefully this will be a bit of good news for some people, but I just started the development process on coming out with wide widths. So
okay,
that's going to be with the new last, just because it's more round toe, so it should be more accommodating in shape for people who are 2E, 3E, 4E widths. So I did just start the development process on that. But as far as like stock items, like, the development process can take, like, this will easily take 6 months. Like, I'm calling it right now.
yeah,
At least 6 month minimum. And the reason for that is it's not that it's like 6 months and, I don't know, 2,000 hours worth of time just solely doing this, because it's not. It's, when I say like that type of time period, like 6 months, it has to do with the time that it takes to actually draw up the sample, then send it into like 3D printing. And then, because like I work with a last company that helps me do this stuff. So
okay.
I have a 3D last printer in the basement of my house. So it's not something that
You don't? Because I have one right over here. No, just kidding.
Oh, really? That's awesome. But yeah, like, we're talking like, time that it makes to go over the specifications, send it into printing and manufacturing the last, we're talking like a month or so there. We're talking transit time. There's another 2 weeks day or so. We're talking mock-up and sampling time at factory. That could be a month to 8 weeks, 6 weeks maybe. And then, like, we need time to like sample it. So it's usually involves me finding a couple of interested customers or fans or followers that want to test out some new sample prototype or whatever. And then, like, they'll wear it for, a month or 2 months and just kind of provide feedback on the fit and the feel. So, it's, when I say, 6 months, like, that's kind of like what goes into it. It's not like 6 months worth of being at a drawing board. And
Right.
But it's just it's a culmination of like every step just kind of adding up, like, in the overall time period of things. So
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. There's a lot of logistics. It's not just planning. It's getting each piece done and then before you're ready to do the next piece. So, but I have heard in my DMs on Instagram recently that you are working on a rounder last. So is that the one that you're talking about that's in development now?
So this is it. So
okay.
the last, the 602 that the Derby came out on is the rounder last. So the rounder last, the 602. And the wider widths are going to be done on that rounder last, just so it's a little bit more accommodating. I know that sometimes, like, people who have like a single E or double E width, just based off of the feedback that I've received from them, sometimes the 18 last, the toe taper on it might just be a little bit too sharp of a taper for maybe like a 2E width. But having said that, like, I do have customers who have that 2E width. They go a half a size up from their Brannock size, because, like, the way my sizing goes is that there's actually slightly more width added as you go up in size than there is length. For some, it tends to work out for them, and naturally, I can understand for others it doesn't work out for them, and that's perfectly fine. Like, I'm just grateful that they, that they had the time to try my product and allowed me the opportunity to communicate with them. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I did that sizing video for your boots, and I have to say, I think, yeah, like,
thank you. By the way, that was really informative.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I meant to do it. I was meaning to do it way sooner, but I kind of wanted to, walk in the boots and get an overall assessment. But yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, long story short, yeah, I think in terms of like the Alden True Balance, which is always my question, how a new boots a new boot would relate. These are yours up against the Alden True Balance. I want to say they're just a little bit shorter than the True Balance. These are both 8.5. But I could have gone down to an 8 in Alden True Balance, and 8.5 in yours is perfect. These 8.5s on True Balance are generous. Like I wear thick socks. With yours, I wear medium socks. So the same size in True Balance, and your boots, I want to say your boots fit like probably a half size smaller, I would say. But yeah, I go over that in more detail in the sizing video. But yeah, these are the perfect fit on my foot for sure. Like I wear them with thin to medium sized socks, and they're incredible. They're so supportive.
Yeah, that's awesome. It takes like so much time to just develop a last, and it's just insane. Like I went through 8 different iterations of that boot last that you have before like I actually launched Parkhurst, and that took place over probably like 18 months, a year and a half or so. And it was just constantly like sample, develop, back to the drawing board, sample, develop, back to the drawing board. And there was testing in there naturally, but the same type of concept applies to that 6-month breakdown that I was explaining earlier, where it's not like I'm in front of a drawing board for 6 months straight or like a year and a half straight. Like there's different things that are happening throughout that time period. So it can be a crazy long and tedious process, but it's necessary. And like there's not going to be one last that's going to fit every person's foot, and that's just the nature of the beast, right? So you're gonna have to have like different lasts with different objectives aimed in each of their fits. So, but yeah, I'm gonna 2 of them for now. If at some point in the future there needs to be a third last, then like I'm happy to look into developing it. Right now, focusing on this newer 602 last and shoes. Parkhurst was originally supposed to be a shoe company. I originally wanted to do shoes, but it was funny the way it worked out, because it just so happened but with the designs that I mocked up and the sourcing that I did, it just so happened that boots tended to pan out better than shoes like at that time for a laundry list of different reasons. Right. So the original was supposed to be shoes, but it's funny how you make plans for something and plans don't always work out. So what do you
That's so true. And I will tell you though, I mean, boots are, I think generally speaking, a lot more exciting, at least to our community, than shoes are. I mean, we love our shoes, but boots are like, that's what we get excited about, boots, Like,
I'm the same, like as as a collector, and now manufacturer, designer, whatever you want to call me. Yeah. It's definitely offered me a much different perspective going through this transition from like collecting them or designing or manufacturing. I mean, obviously I work with the factory here in Western New York, Artisan Boot, to help me to produce the shoes, but so I can't say like I'm directly manufacturing them, but maybe I'm getting too caught up in the details. But no, but for sake of like what actually happens, that's what goes on. But it's different, going through that. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I got a hard time putting this together.
No, you're doing great. I mean, because getting into your mind is, because I mean, from your perspective, you already know like what it's like to be a boot maker, but for somebody like me, it's fascinating to hear the process, because I'm interested in one day getting a leather works myself, not necessarily making boots, but making something, just because I love leather so much. I mean, that's it. My curiosity keeps me fascinated by all these different brands and different leathers and things like that. And that's why, it's so great to hear your insights, because you've been through so much. Like you've been through the beta testing and the implementation and the launch and now you've been running it for 2 years. I mean, just crazy, So
I mean, it's been a crazy ride. I mean, it's just been so nuts. I mean, like when I was first developing Parkhurst, like, and a lot of people know this story, so again, I hope I'm not being too redundant here, but like I was also working as a stock trading analyst like while I was developing this for like a year and a half before I actually launched Parkhurst. So like, it was rough, like working 70-hour weeks. Like you're at your desk at like 6:30 in the morning, and then on occasions like you wouldn't come home till like 8-9 o'clock at night for 5 days a week. And then like for me, it it was like, when I got home, it's like, okay, 9:30, make dinner, 8:30, make dinner, you know, shower and sit down and work on Parkhurst till midnight, and then kind of get up and repeat the same thing for 5 days a week. What made it challenging was that when I had to go out to the factory during the weekdays to like approve samples and see like mock-ups and stuff. So if I had it, and one thing I'm truly grateful for is just like the proximity to the factory that I work with, because it was like 30 minutes away. So, I mean, there were instances where like I would take days off from work just to go out to the factory, or like there are instances where during the workday, our average workflow would be like probably about like 500 to 600 emails that come in during the day. I'd maybe get like 10 to 15 phone calls an hour, just because it was like a really high pace. Like it's probably not that different from what everybody else, working in, that type of job experiences. But and I'm not expecting like any credit or sympathy or anything whatsoever like that. But I'm just trying to describe like what it was actually like doing both of the things at once. But there were parts during the day where like managing that type of workflow was very hard for me. And like pairing that with, the quote unquote doctor's appointment out in Orchard Park to out to the factory during the work and come back and then have like an inbox full of like, 100 emails that down right. Like it was very challenging. Like there were times where like I was coming back with like, I would come back to work from the factory with like a trunk load. I drove a vehicle cross. So like, it was a trunk load of boot samples and custom orders for people. And I'm sitting there with these things in my trunk and I'm going into work for another 5 hours and leaving. And it was just, oh man, thinking about it, like, wow. Like it was just, I don't know how I had the energy to do it. Like, I don't know. I was wiped. I was tired. I was exhausted. Like it was a lot.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I can imagine that.
It was kind of what I just had to do. Like it was because like I mean, I don't know. Like again, I don't want to talk like too much about like what I did to kind of get started here. But the truth of the matter is like I saved up to do this. Like I made like I just a lot of my friends who went to college like they went off to college, whereas I lived at home during college, and I wanted to be able to save up to do something like this one day. And then even like the first like 3-4 years of my career, like I still lived at home just to kind of, because like I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something like this, but like I also wanted to, frankly make sure that, I had the capital to do it. And like, that's just kind of like, I guess the long or the short of it, of, just how I kind of like started doing this. So it was, between that, obviously like it's sometimes tough on relationships too, with like friends and family, because it's like you have like a one-track mind, right? Like you're so focused on building this thing and making it work. So yeah, I mean, this is just me being 100% honest right now. And, to say that there were challenges along the way would definitely be accurate. Yeah. But it's not, again, like this isn't out of the ordinary for anybody. Like everybody who starts a business has gone through many more challenges, I'm sure, than I have, has overcame many more struggles than I have. And like, I feel very lucky and I feel very grateful at the end of the day, because like I had kind of like what you hinted on earlier, like you have a support system or the idea that these cool things are made from collaborations, right? So it's like if I didn't have the help and support of like my family and friends, and especially the factory the factory that I work with, Artisan it is now, but I mean, if they didn't believe in me, like if they didn't like deal with all like I redid the last like 8 times. Who the hell has patience for a client like that? Like, I mean, like I really got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, if it wasn't for the amazing people that I work with, without them, making the boots, like it's just crazy. And like I wouldn't be able to offer the type of product that I have now. Oh, this is the natural Dublin, by the way, that's in the process of being restocked, so it'll be back short. Yeah. So
You can put me down for a pair of those. I'll take one.
will do.
That's crazy. I've been wanting natural Dublin for so long, and like I think I'm serious. Like I think I'll jump on those because I love your laugh, and yeah,
It's very,
I've been waiting
but
for those to restock.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot. The the factory and the crew that I work with there, like they really deserve the overwhelming bulk of the credit and praise here, because they're just, I mean, just like I've been mentioning, like they've been so flexible when working with me, and they've been just so accommodating. And I really wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And that's the truth. So.
For sure. But man, I gotta give you some serious props though, because it sounds like you were, I mean, I've gone through periods of that in my life too, where it was like I was working full time, going to school full time, and I literally had no time for anything else. It was
I
so
know.
like just not a nightmare, but I mean, because it's good
Yeah.
to be busy, don't get me wrong, but I understand having a vision and like letting that vision like drive you. You know what I mean? So I have to say, like, but it shows in the end product. Like, I mean, you've done a phenomenal job. I really have to applaud you. I think it really truly is paying off. I'm not just saying that. Like, I think you've created something very unique, something all your own, and I think you'd be, yeah,
Yeah.
you could be proud of that. You've done a good job. And one thing that I kind of wanted to ask, I noted that like from the front, the vamp, it kind of slants down this way. That, like, I've compared that to my other boots. None of my other boots do that. They're all like the same,
Yeah.
like round, whereas yours is more like I compared it to a beret, like that cool slant off the side.
Yeah, there is like a slant to it almost. I don't know if I'm gonna
Yeah,
nudge this up there. But yeah, so believe it or not, there is a reason for that. And the reason is when you're looking at your foot head on, and like I look at this in the 3D modeling all the time whenever we're going back to the drawing board for a last or making a tweak or creating a new one. When you look at your foot head on, your foot comes up, you see your instep coming up on one side, so it's more vertical like this. But then look at your foot head on, it also starts to taper down as you go toward like your smaller toe. So the reason for that, the reason why I made it like that in the last, is because naturally that's generally what most people's feet do. And obviously there are all sorts of different shapes and sizes out there, so by no means am I trying to speak for everybody, but that's generally what the human foot looks like. And so like I wanted to accommodate that in the last design itself, and just to give it a more like natural feel in the toe box, because like I understand that for many people, this is a selling point for them, and it's a point of comfort that you need in your footwear, is there needs to be like an ample room and ample bend in the toe box. So that was part of the whole challenge, was how do you create a last that's almond shaped, well, somewhat almond shaped. I mean, mine isn't a perfect almond shape, but how do you do that without sacrificing room in the toe box, both vertically and horizontally? So like for me, like, and there's more than one way to do this, right? Like there's more than one way to make an almond toe shaped last. But for me, I just kind of decided to go the route of, why don't we just design this with like the natural contour of the slope of your foot? So, and like for a lot of people it works out, and for some people it doesn't, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, like that's kind of that was kind of the thought process behind making that curve like that, going toward your small toe, but keeping it more upright and having the majority of the bulk where your instep would like slide into the toe box.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And I have to say, man, yeah, it feels great on my foot. It feels different compared to my other boots, but it feels great. And you're right, like most feet do slant that way. And also I think it looks really cool. Kind of like certain lasts, like the Viberg 2030 or the Alden True Balance, they've got like a cool silhouette. And I think that's what marks your boot with its own awesome silhouette, is that slant. I think
that's good. that. That's good to know.
Yeah, I think it looks awesome. And it wasn't something I would have noticed had I not been like really looking at it really close. But I always thought, man, there's something slick about your last, about the way that it looks, especially from the front. Because on your website pictures, I see them from the front and I'm like, there's just something about those. Like, what is that? Oh, I see it now. Like, it took me a minute.
I mean, yeah, I appreciate you taking notice and enjoying it too. That's great. I mean, it was, I mean, it's kind of all part of the design, I guess. So
that's good.
It was purpose.
Right. I could tell you put like a lot of effort into it. And like you said, you redesigned that last 8 times. So, I mean, did all 8 versions of that have the slant or,
honestly, all iterations of it did have it. I mean, I probably didn't need to redesign it 8 times, and it was probably just me like initially not knowing what I was doing for, I don't know, the first 7. But like, I mean, it's just like a bunch of trial and error type things. And again, like the last company that I worked with was incredibly flexible with me too, because like they kept making all these changes that I wanted them to make. And like, it's just like, this isn't like, I like this. That's why I say like, it really is not just me here. It's like everybody that I've worked with that has helped create this product. Like, yeah, I've sketched a few designs for patterns in last dimensions on a few sheets of paper. So what? Like it's, I think it's more about the people who actually help bring this to life, like whether it be the people that I work with at the last company or, the factory Artisan Boot and, just 30 minutes away from Buffalo here in Batavia. So I really got to give a lot of credit to them, and, just for everybody who's helped me along the way, my suppliers. I mean, my God, my suppliers, I wouldn't even have the raw materials to make this if it wasn't for them. And, it's just great to be able to be in, from a business perspective, it's great to be able to be in a business community like this, where I have the types of relationships that I have with the people. And on the other, and as a side note to that, it's also nice to be in this consumer community of people who like appreciate this type of stuff. And like, are my boots perfect? No. Like there's always something that could be improved. There's always something that could be changed. There's always something that could be refined and tweaked and whatnot and improved upon. So, but at the end of the day, like I'm confident that like, the product is very solid right now. And, naturally I'm a flexible kind of guy. Like if somebody gives me feedback about the boots, like I listen to it and like, I try implementing that feedback in a sample or a prototype or whatnot, seeing how it comes out. And then if we have to make the adjustment for the entire line to it, then we do that at the factory. So again, just another reason, why I work with the people that I work with and at Artisan, because they've just been so accommodating and so nice to me and helping make Parkhurst, giving it the success that it's had so far.
Right. Adapt and overcome, my friend. Yeah. And like I said, I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I'm sure you get this question. I'm sure you're probably sick of this question, but I kind of want to ask it just because
I feel like it's all good. I mean,
right. Ask away. It's the elephant in the room. It's shell cordovan. I'm sure you get asked a billion times a day. Oh, you're gonna run shell? You're gonna run shell? So what's the story with shell?
So, the story with shell is all right. So, okay. You better strap yourself in, man. This is okay.
Correct.
Can I make a shell cordovan? Can the factory make a shell cordovan boot? Yes. It can be done. And it has been done. In fact, a whiskey shell cordovan boot was made for a client of mine who took delivery of it. But it was the one and only sample that was made using that shell cordovan. So shell cordovan, if you don't mind, I'd like to address this from 2 separate perspectives. The first one being the leather itself, and the second one being how it's handled and worked with in the factory. So if we could start with the leather, I'd appreciate it. So the leather itself, I was sourcing some shell from an Italian, a well-known Italian tannery for shell cordovan, and it was gorgeous. And it naturally, shell is very expensive, right? I mean, I think for just under 5 square feet, like it cost probably $550 or something, like just to get the shell. That's just the upper leather cost, right? Like, and that's not even including the cost of the new insole that I upgraded to, and building the rest of the boot, and all that other, the cork, the shank, the midsole, the outsole, the heel, and all that. So the cost does play a role in sourcing and obtaining leather. So, but the leather was so gorgeous, like it was so nice. The thing is, though, when working with the leather itself, like it does take a long time to get. Like when I got it, like I got some sample shells that were laying around that they sent to me, just because they were laying around and they were samples. So, but when it comes to like production orders, like it was like a 12-week lead time, so it's like 3 months. So we're looking at 3 months goes by. Like I usually plan like 8 to 12 months ahead for my production, but like with this one, with just taking up to 3 months for the upper leather alone, like that made planning for it a nightmare, because like you don't always know, like especially with like COVID going on too, like you don't know if they're going to be like supply line delays or anything with anything else, with the soles, the heels, the mids. You just don't know, and it's nobody's fault. It's just COVID's been it's been affecting it's affecting everybody and everything, right? So the leather itself, like then when you get production shell, like not all of it is exactly the same. It's not exactly consistent. So like there are areas of the shell that are lighter and darker, and then this concept also plays into what we spoke about earlier with the kudu. It's that there might not be a big enough part of shell that matches the other boot for the pattern to fit into. So like for instance, like if we're talking about like say this quarter area here, like this is all one piece that's cut, but the problem is like there might not be a consistent enough piece on the shell to match the quarters on both boots. And the same principle goes for like the heel counters, and especially for the vamps, because those are like the first thing you see. And like that also plays into, okay, well, it's like, do we want to, like, how much will the end price be, taking into considerations the way the shell's being cut and whatnot, like how much of it's going to be usable versus not usable. And then like from other famous tanneries, like both in Japan, and then obviously there's harwin tans, like amazing shell cordovan. A lot of it has to do with like how long it's going to take to get it, and this is just like the leather, just like the leather in and of itself. So going on to the second point was that working with shell cordovan is a nightmare, to say to put it very frank. Sewing it is like it's so dense and tight grained that sewing it is so tricky. Like it's so difficult, and then pulling it over the last, like it doesn't really stretch, so there's not much give. So pulling over was difficult. So like a long story short, like there are so many challenges that like I'm looking at working through, just kind of like working with it, because like it's not like the factory did an amazing job on the sample that was made. Like again, like they're good at what they do, but like for me, like it's more of like a on my end type of thing. Like it's a matter of getting the shell. It's a matter of like how long it's going to take to get it. It's a matter of what the cost is going to be. It's being able to offer a good value to customers still after that, because it's like once you factor in all the other costs and whatnot to making a pair of shell boots or shell shoes, you want to be mindful of what everybody else around you is charging too. So
Definitely. Well, thank you. That is great insight into shell. Because, I've heard it is just such. It is, like you said, a nightmare to work with. And then sometimes if you do it wrong, you could crack it because shell doesn't stretch. So if you pull it too tight, it could crack, and that that just ruins the whole thing. So it's like, and I've seen that. I've seen cracked shell, and it's not a good thing. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen it too. It hasn't happened, on my end, but
that's good.
But does kind of suck though, because like if that happens, like that would usually happen during pullover. And then by that time, you're pretty much halfway through with the boot. So it's like you have like this time and resources invested in making this boot halfway through, and now it's all for nothing. So because like you're not going to be able to wear it. So it's
Right.
And
Right.
not to talk your ear off or everyone's ear off too much about this, but like there are definitely a different set of challenges working with shell than there is like working with a veg tan bovine or like a kudu or a moose or something like that. So
Right, right. And my apologies, I keep getting distracted looking at those natural Dublins. I mean, those things are beautiful.
a bit longer if you like. Here they are.
Amazing.
Allen boot in natural Dublin. So yeah. Just
Yeah.
hope to have this out soon here. So yeah,
Cool.
it's gonna be trying to get this stocked. I mean, I first introduced it in it was like fall winter of 2019, and then like shortly after, like I think by January or so, I think they were sold out or pretty much sold out by then. But that was also right around the time where like COVID started to first kind of pop up, but like we didn't really like there wasn't really that much attention paid to it because it wasn't like a worldwide thing at the time, right? So obviously like we wanted to reorder more leather and stuff. So we did that, but like then like a month later, then like lockdown started to happen, right? So then obviously like things got pushed to the side and like every manufacturer had delays, pretty much the entire time throughout 2020. So like, I'm just grateful to be able to have gotten the leather in, and I'm grateful that, the factory is, willing to produce this style again for me. I mean, like I said, they're great at what they do. And, this is definitely a style that I'm looking to keep around as part of like kind of the core collection. So
For sure. And I'll be honest, I've been waiting for those to come back. Like every time I log onto your site, I'm like, are the natural Dublins back?
I know. Yeah. It's just like, and the other thing too, is like we had a supply line delay in December, really, that started around, I kind of foresaw it around like just before Thanksgiving. And I was kind of hoping that it wasn't going to turn into a thing. And then sure enough, it turns into a thing, but like you can't really control it. Like everybody's going through, like every business and manufacturer is going through the exact same thing. So it's like,
Right.
You gotta like I've had to like tweak my plans and tweak, and re-project what I think is going to be available when and what's coming in when. So yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit difficult, but at the end of the day, I'm just really thankful that my customers and are patiently waiting, and my fans are patiently waiting for this. I can't thank them enough for that, because I know that 2020 has been a very trying year for all of us, and I really appreciate their patience and everybody's patience while this boot is being restocked, and the few remaining supplies coming in. I mean, even the one we had in December, it held up a few custom orders in that too from November and October. So again, thank you so much to my customers who are very patiently waiting for us to finish everything up here, and I appreciate that very much. But yeah, so it's just a matter of putting everything together and lining everything up. So
Right. I hear you, man. And one thing I wanted to ask about was a lot of makers are starting to use shrunken bison hide. Is that on your radar at all?
It's on my radar, but it's not necessarily in the factory just yet.
Okay.
There are leathers that I'm working with that are a little bit different that I've never offered before. So those will be coming out, I'd say fairly soon, in the form of like pre-orders and stuff. And there might be one or two stock items. So I think bison's really cool. I mean, it's I've seen pictures of it before, and like the grain on it is just amazing. I think it's really cool. But is it something that I'm going to immediately incorporate or look at in the near future? I don't know. Probably not. But I mean, if the opportunity comes along, then yeah, I'm not against like ordering a sample hide, from a tannery and just kind of mocking it up and seeing what it turns out like.
Cool. Yeah, because I can tell you, I have a couple pieces from Law Tanning, and some of my friends and we've been talking to Law Tanning behind the scenes to develop a navy shrunken bison, and they just came out with finally, apparently navy is a really hard color to get right. And they just came out with.
Are like, I'm doing a custom order for a guy right now with like a navy Latigo leather or Latigo. I know everybody pronounces it differently, but like that, I was very surprised to see that leather come in as consistent color wise as it was, because I've seen other navy leathers before, and I thought to myself, geez, with like the shade variation on this, like cutting this is probably going to be a nightmare for the factory, and I don't want to be that guy who's going to ask to cut this crazy leather. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, but it's like that even with some green leathers that I've used. It's like that with even some gray leathers that I've used. Like, but yeah, navy for some reason definitely seems to be more spoken about than other shades with regards to variation in color.
Right. Well, and actually, a little interesting side note, like blue is in nature, anyways. When nature is going to produce a color, green is one of the easiest colors to produce. Blue is actually most complex, most difficult, and it's interesting. For example, you don't see many blue flowers out there, blue,
Exactly.
blues, yeah, and incredibly complex. It requires like a combination of molecules that I'm not smart enough to get into the science, but it's like, yeah, blue is the most difficult color to produce in nature. That's why it's so rare. And yeah, and the same goes for leather tanning things blue as well. So
yeah, I mean, it's a tough color for sure. So
yeah, it is. But when it's right, man, it is amazing. Another question I had was, so you've run Mohawk before, but
this was that boot, yeah.
Okay, yes. And I know you run a lot of leathers from Charles F. Stead. Have you given thought to doing any Rambler from Charles F. Stead?
Yeah, I have actually. It's funny you mentioned that, because like just this past weekend, I was looking at my Rambler swatches from them, and I feel like that's a term like never. I was looking at my Rambler swatches the other day. I just feel like it's a term that's just not commonly used. I don't know.
You're probably the first person in history to ever make that reference.
I was looking at their swatches the other day.
Yeah. Who else can say that?
I don't know. I guess, right? But I was looking at them, and I thought to myself, this leather is so similar to Mohawk, and like I got to send an email to them and just see if I can get like an actual like list of differences. I know there are differences. Like I can feel like, yes, the texture is different. There's different thicknesses. There's different amounts of like natural scarring and stuff. And like I know there's also like differences that people have pointed out online before and stuff. But like me being like the nitty gritty, like detail oriented person, like I want to know like what's behind the tannage, like what's behind, like how are the hides brought in raw form, and like how are they altered or manipulated to get like that certain type of finish on them, or to get them to absorb the dyes better from the tanning process. So like I've looked at using Rambler, but at the same time, it's like I have experience with Mohawk. We've done some samples on Rambler, and like for me, it's one of those things where it's just so similar. I mean, I feel like everybody has their own opinion on this too, who has experiences between the two leathers, and that's fine. But just from my experience, like I just feel like they're very, very similar in that sense on the grain side. Now the reverse side, yeah, there are some differences, but also on the grain side, like the biggest thing that stuck out to me was there's almost like a rock-like texture to Rambler over Mohawk. Like something where I guess it's hard to explain. Like when you would see like different like veinings and distress marks in like different rocks, like if you were to go hiking on a trail somewhere, like I feel like for some reason I see that in the Rambler leather itself, maybe more so than the Mohawk, but that could also just be due to the hides that were delivered. So like it could be totally exclusive to that case versus another one. So
right. Actually, absolutely, and you're right. Like a lot of my Ramblers, they do have like a rocky, more marbled appearance compared to some of my Mohawk.
That's a good word for it. Yeah, marbled. Yeah.
Right. actually, I was writing an article and for Nick at Stridewise, and I asked him.
Yeah.
Well, I emailed Charles F. Stead. Sorry, I'm trying to look it up now. Um, and I asked the difference between their Mohawk and their Rambler, and all it is okay. I have it here. Okay, so in terms of Rambler versus Mohawk, they said they are similar articles, but Mohawk is available as a waterproof tannage. It also has a different wax compared to the Rambler.
That's what they told me too. When I spoke to them, there's like a different wax blend that they put in. I mean, both leathers can be waxed, and then it's like if there's a different wax tanning recipe, like I have customers all the time who email me and they're like, can you wax this boot before sending it out to me? And like I'll wax it anyways. So it's like, I don't know. Do we for me it's a question of like, do I have the tannery put these two different blends of waxes in? Like is it splitting hairs at that point? Like is it, you know what I mean? Like is it so like personally I don't have enough feedback from customers and fans just yet about Rambler versus Mohawk preference, but obviously like I'm happy to accommodate something like that if a customer or fan or client wants it. I'm happy to look into it more. Having said that, they're both really cool leathers, and I'm hoping to maybe bring in a Rambler at some point this year. I'd love to be able to do that.
Oh man, that would be awesome. Yeah. Oh, there's so many awesome Ramblers. Coach, Stone.
Do it. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure you'd get some hits, especially if you did like a plain toe model Rambler. Oh, that would be
yeah,
incredible. Yeah, yeah.
The Allen was like the first style that I launched with, and like that's kind of just seemed to have been my core style ever since then. The Allen's for those who don't know, it's plain toe boot, and then Delaware is a brogue cap toe. The newer Richmond, which was introduced last fall, there are two types. It's a plain cap toe boot. You got the original Richmond with the 3 rows of the stitching on the cap toe, and then for orders I started doing a 2-row toe cap stitch, which I haven't actually ran production on just yet. I've just mainly been doing it for custom orders and samples. So, but yeah, styles. And then there's the Spalding wingtip style, and then the Bidwell is the derby shoe style. So
definitely, yeah, all amazing things. And yeah, that Spalding is a really attractive wingtip boot. And you released that natural Chrome Excel, right?
Yes.
Do you have any plans to do any other variations of that, like maybe a color 8 or?
I was thinking maybe of keeping the Spalding and natural Chrome Excel around for a while, and then maybe doing another boot color, because like the thing is like a wingtip boot is more of a particular style. It's not one that like say that might be as easily paired with an outfit as say an Allen boot or maybe a plain cap toe boot or something like that. It's got more dressy vibe or appeal or look to it. So like it might not necessarily be worn every day. So that might reduce the flexibility for some customers, but then again, it might not. If somebody loves to wear brogue and wingtip boots every day, then this is the perfect boot for them, right? Yeah, it kind of depends on. I kind of want to see like how things go with this one first before introducing another one, because like it's a brand new style. It's a very there's a lot going on with it. Like there's a lot of broguing detail, like on the vamp, the toe box, and then going up the ankles. So
Right.
I want to see like how like if the pattern even needs to be changed. Like I want to be able to collect as much feedback from fans and customers as possible before going and expanding on something. Like if there can be a small change or maybe even an improvement that could take place.
Right, right. And I'm looking at it now. It's very attractive. It even has the medallion on the toe, which is very, very looking. That is gorgeous. Oh man. How is it picking out a medallion pattern? Because there's so many. I mean, each boot and shoe that I look at has just a different medallion on it. And yours looks really nice. It almost looks like an hourglass, right? Or
it kind of does, yeah. Like almost has that hourglass like silhouette to it, but like I designed that medallion, and I designed the broguing pattern that you see all around that boot, and I designed it while I was at my job. I had a napkin from the cafeteria, and I had a sharp marker on me, and I was just like sketching these little like perforated hole designs like on this brown napkin with like little sharp, like that's literally how that was like done. Like, I don't know, as weird as it sounds, that's just, I mean,
Yeah.
I think someone else do that, and that made something, there's an author, what was I think, wasn't it like J.K. Rowling that wrote like the Harry Potter books? Like, she was a server, I believe, at a restaurant, right?
Oh
And she
yeah.
was writing, I think she was, I could be totally wrong, but I thought that she was writing like chapters on napkins or something.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, no, I was just weird. Like, I don't know, weird how things happen on napkins of all,
Right,
of
right.
all. I don't
Great,
know.
great things come of napkin writings, napkin sketches.
Yeah, you never know.
It's true. Yeah. For example, like I sometimes I just have weird epiphanies and weird ideas for an idea or something to do, and it comes at me at the strangest times. Sometimes that's all you have to write it down is a napkin. So
Like, I mean, I was out of my pads of paper at the time. Like, I was eating lunch, and it was the only like blank thing available for me to just, kind of sketch this thing out on. So it was, I don't know. I know it sounds, but I mean, it's kind of what happened. So
oh, thank God, because that is one attractive wingtip boot, my friend. So you did it. You did an outstanding job on that.
well, like I said, I mean, I owe a lot of it to the people at the factory. I mean, they were able to cut it, and they were able to translate it from a napkin to a sheet of paper into the software that's used, and then sent it into the cutting machine to cut it and stuff. So, again, I owe design and bringing the product to bringing the product to life to them.
That makes sense. Well, and one last question, I wanted to ask you a more personal one because I'd like to know more about the maker. What is one thing surprising about yourself that many people would not know or guess about you?
That's a good question. I'm super into food.
Okay.
Believe, like, I don't know, like, I don't really I don't really like talk about that a lot, because like I feel like everybody's like into food, like, nowadays. With, I love just like cooking and coming up with new stuff, but then like I also love to try to live as as active of a lifestyle as possible, and like Parkhurst keeps me on my feet like all the time, like just doing stuff. But I really like just cooking and just kind of like just trying new foods and going different places. But obviously with COVID around, like, that's not really as possible as it was before. And obviously, like, there are different, like, mandates and guidelines in state to state. So I understand in some states people, they can still do that. But here in New York, I think like restaurant capacity is at like 50% or something like that. I could be wrong. I think maybe it's different for each county, but all I can go off of is the county that I live in. But yeah, like I don't mind like doing that type of, like, going out and trying new things, different foods from different parts of the world. I'm totally into doing that type of stuff.
Cool, man. Well, hey, if you're ever in the Baltimore, DC area, I know a few good spots. I'll take you to some good joints. We have in Baltimore, we have a street called Little Italy. It's a whole district of
Yeah.
Italian foods, all like authentic, like straight from Italy families that have been there for like over
I love,
100.
I love that. My family has Italian heritage in it, so I'm half Italian myself. But
Okay.
the part of my family that's from Italy, they're from more northern Italy. So it's interesting because like I go to like a lot of, and this is different from like restaurant to restaurant, right? Like there's so many different segments of like parts of Italy, and it's like this for any country, right? Like there's different food, like say in the north than there might be in the south type thing, or like in the east versus the west or whatever. So it's interesting because like growing up, I didn't have like a lot of maybe more of what like I didn't have like a lot of like spaghetti and meatballs type thing. Like it was more of like pasta with like olive oil and garlic, and like there wasn't a lot of like red meat. Like there was a lot of like fish and chicken, like oriented like that. So
Okay.
like we didn't really eat sausage. Like we didn't really like have that. We didn't really didn't have many meatballs. But like, not to get like too specific here, but
Right.
but
No, that's cool.
it just goes to show like how different it's like the different cooking, I guess, cultures, if that's the right name for it,
Yeah.
or whatever, like just how different like the cooking is from like region to region. And Another thing that I saw like that too was like with Indian food too. Like I love Indian food, no matter what region it's from. But they're different. Yeah, I got a lot of friends who are from India, but they're from different areas, for example, and like they cook differently. And I've dined with them. I've had their food they've cooked like each time, and there is definitely a different sense of flair about it. And one of my best friends he grew up in China and he lives in Beijing, and he's, I haven't actually been to China, so I can't really speak with experience, but like he was telling me that like there's different foods and different cooking styles per region. So like I've always been fascinated by that. It's just like I love trying like the different like flavors and combinations of different spices and herbs and blending things together. But yeah, like I love watching a good like cooking show, or like honestly, like Anthony Bourdain was like his show is like one of my favorites. And then like Gordon Ramsay did this recent one that was on, I think it was on like Hulu or Netflix, maybe even Disney Plus, I forgot. But basically just went around the world like cooking for different leaders in the region, just like different like foods that they're used to having in the region. And like I thought it was so cool. Like I love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Seriously. Well, man, I will say, like, I know you say that that's not surprising, but that surprises me that you're into food, because you don't look like you're into food. You look like you look like you're into protein shakes and that's about it.
I like to live as, an active lifestyle as when I can, but like, Parkhurst, it kind of comes first. So, that's where my love and dedication is. So I'm super into all that stuff. It kind of sucks more because like with COVID, right? Like everything's just like, it's just so not the same. Like in Buffalo, there are so many different amazing, like different ethnic places to eat. And like, I love like trying a place that I haven't gone before, or, that's like kind of like truly was my pastime, is just like, go place different, or maybe going to the same place and ordering a different thing off the menu or something, like just like little stuff like that, like is just kind of like what is kind of like what I was into, but now it's like like you can't, it's not the same. So
I know it's terrible. I know we're the same way. Me and my wife were foodies, and Baltimore has like 5 really good different food districts, and each one's just completely different. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, like every time it's an adventure, it really is. Like you're saying, Indian food, or one thing that we discovered within the past couple of years is authentic Japanese ramen is.
Oh, yes. Yeah. There's a couple of, okay, I haven't tried it yet, but I can't stop. Before COVID, I couldn't stop hearing about it. There are like 2 new ramen that opened up in Buffalo within the past few years, but like, I just haven't gotten a chance to get there. And like, I've always try it because like my sister, like she sends me pictures of like, she's gone to these places. And I always get so like, I'm like, oh man, I want to be eating that right now. It's like, this is on my, and it should be on my table. Like, so yeah, I get kind of jealous when she's going to a place like that, or if any of my friends just send me a picture of what they ate. I don't know. It sounds cheesy, whatever. I mean, that's what I'm into.
I mean, really, it's like you're experiencing the world when you eat cuisine from that region. It's like you're there almost, without having to travel there. It's like you're taking a miniature adventure, on a micro level. And so, no, I completely resonate with that. I think variety is the spice of life, and I think trying different cuisines is one of the best things, one of the most pleasurable things you could do. So no, I completely can relate. I was. A couple of years ago, I was a Yelp elite. I stopped writing Yelp reviews though, but for a while there, I was like doing a lot of Yelp reviews. Yeah, so I'm the same way. I could relate 100% with your love of food. I think I might love food a little bit more than you though. I think I've packed a couple more pounds during COVID.
I mean, it's just like everybody else. It's just affected everybody in such a different way. Like it's it's crazy. But I mean, I've been able to keep busy during COVID, thankfully. I have the factory and my fans and customers to thank for that. But at the same time, like I also recognize that it's been very tough, to say the least, for a lot of people out there. And it's been tough on on my end, on our end too. So, you know, it's just it's not like trying to just keep like stay busy and just kind of stay focused on what you have to do and what you're trying to do to just kind of like further your goal and accomplish whatever goals you might have. Not trying to sound like a motivational speaker by any means, but just kind of like saying like what has kind of like kept me sane like during all
Definitely.
just not losing focus on like the light at the end of the tunnel type thing. So
Right, right. And one thing that I learned during this COVID thing is that all jobs are essential. There's no such thing as a non-essential job. Like, no, all freaking jobs are essential.
all
Every,
jobs,
yeah,
it's in. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I think that like people like healthcare workers and doctors, like the frontline essential people, like, I mean, they're saints. I mean, going in and tackling this thing head on and like,
yeah,
I mean, here, like, I mean, maybe you don't really hear like anybody complaining about what they're doing. Like they're doing their job. And I mean, the thing is like we can just tell each other, oh, you're doing your job, but like, you know, I have a profound level of respect for them because it's like they're doing their job, but they're also putting their own life like at risk. And granted, there are other jobs in the world where people do put their lives at risk for other people, you know, in order to accomplish their job. But you know, it's this, we're getting a lot of attention and spotlight on COVID right now because of that, because of the volume of cases and instances in hospitals and stuff like that. So I definitely have a lot of respect for the healthcare workers doing that.
yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
one of my neighbors went to work as a ER doctor recently.
Oh,
And when I was talking to her last, like she was just saying it's just like, I think maybe like 3 years out of medical school or something like that. And like she was saying it's unlike anything that they talked to us about in medical school. She said it's unlike anything that I saw during my internships, during, you know, residencies and stuff like that. So like I feel bad because it's like, you know, it's a completely different world that you're kind of like stepping into. And
right.
yeah. So
So true. Yeah, that's
yeah.
so true. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely challenging times, and yeah, I have a couple family members that are in the medical industry, and yeah, they have some crazy stories, and yeah, like you said, I'm just so thankful that they still get up every day and do the same thing every day, regardless of the risk. You know, it's
I know. Yeah. It's
inspiring to see, and I mean, other people too, like that, you know, that work in other jobs that you know, everybody's risking coming to into exposure with it. You know, so
oh
I mean, yeah,
yeah.
and part of the real downside to the whole thing is the shutdown. Everything's sort of stagnated. People
Oh,
are looking for things to do.
we've had to get my grandmother puzzle after puzzle off of Amazon. And yeah,
I believe it.
it's crazy. All
Or
we can try our best, right? And
right.
get together. So
Yeah, we're tough. Americans are tough. We're gonna get through this. Definitely, definitely. Well, hey man, I've run through all my questions, and I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to mention before we close up, but I do just need to thank you profusely for taking time out of your busy day to come onto my channel and to have this
oh
talk. I think it was a phenomenal talk, very informative. You are a great guy, very nice guy, very smart guy. I mean,
well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm glad I was able to carve some time out here to be on your channel. Thank you for having me on your channel. And you know, to answer your first question, you know, I think that pretty much covers everything that, you know, we talked about. It. If anybody has any questions about anything, like, you know where to reach me. info@parkhurstbrand.com. There's a contact form on the website. There's a contact form on Instagram and Facebook. So like naturally, if anybody has any questions about anything, you know, that we spoke about today or anything, you know, with regards to the future, emails and questions are always welcome. I'll be the one answering it. You know, Parkhurst is a one-person company right now, being me. So I handle all emails and website stuff and, you know, design, sourcing, advertising, creations and stuff like that. So who they'll be communicating with. So packing and shipping as well. The occasional varnishing or customers want it, nailing the outsides of the heels type stuff. So, you know.
Absolutely. And that's one area where you excel is in replying. Like whenever I have a question, you come back at me within like 10, 20 minutes, like I have a full on response from Andrew, and it's
try to get a response within like 24 to 48 hours. It naturally depends on like, you know, the type of volume that's in the inbox that day, or, you know, just kind of like what all is going on. But yeah, I mean, I try to get everybody a response within 24 or 48 hours or so. So yeah, I mean, like I said, if anybody has any questions or comments about anything, any feedback at all, you know, it's always welcome. Again, info@parkhurstbrand.com. Or if they have a question for you, you feel free to forward it to me and I'll talk to them. Like, happy to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, Andrew, thank you so much. This has just been the best talk. Really enjoyed the talk and really enjoy your boots. So I look forward to future talks with you again, sir. Yes, I think we should do this again sometime in the future, maybe when there's some more updates, you know, maybe some new drops. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So
like I said, thanks again for everything. I appreciate your time. And thank you to everyone who has a chance to watch this. I appreciate your time as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And yeah, we'll be in touch, and yeah,
All right.
we'll close up now, but yeah, thanks again, man. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Dale. Have a good one, man. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. You too. Thanks, brother.